All right, we're live. Good morning and welcome to the live stream for May 9th, 2021. Hope everybody's doing well today. And if your mom is still around, hope you're spending some time with her or your wife or somebody in the family that might be a mother. So, give it a couple more minutes and then we'll get into our topics. Today, I mainly wanted to talk about two things. There is a release candidate for Rocky Linux. And there was a new release of OpenIndiana that came out this week. For those not familiar, OpenIndiana is a project by the Illumos people, or based on the Illumos concept, which basically is a continuation of the Sun Solaris operating system. Now, while I don't think this is necessarily a practical operating system to be running on day-to-day systems, for me, this is sort of a trip back in time to when I was doing my undergraduate degree, and I actually had to work in a computer lab with Sun workstations running Solaris. And you know, it was my first exposure to quote unquote real Unix. And while the systems that we had access to were slow, even by the standards of the time I was taking these classes, you know, there was something a little more exotic about being able to use those machines in that particular computer lab. So, it is now 4 minutes after. We'll give it another minute, and then we'll switch the screen over and take a look at OpenIndiana first. Well, that's not good. Now I'm curious to see whether I'm actually broadcasting. Because I just received an error message trying to make a comment on my own stream. So that's not encouraging. So I will like my video and I'll use Android to say hello to everybody. And for whatever reason, that is not showing up on my screen. So apparently I have no chat at the moment. Oh, it finally came through. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to put this up on screen. And I'm going to make that. Good morning, Praveen. Okay, so what you're seeing on the screen at this point is a virtual machine running OpenIndiana, the latest release, 2021.04 or something, I think it was. And so this is very much a GNOME or Mate, so old school GNOME interface. It has a lot of what you would expect on a Linux distribution, but under the hood, this is in fact running a Solaris based system. Let's see if we can get our terminal to open for us. Okay. Well, apparently I'm not able to respond in the chat, so I'll throw your comment up here. Thank you, Praveen. I don't know of a better way to present the material. I have evolved a little bit over the years that I've been doing the YouTube channel, but having taught IT courses for about 4 years, one thing was very clear to me, and that is the concept of learning styles. A lot of people learn by seeing. A lot of people learn by doing. I happen to learn by doing mostly. I can follow a video or a written tutorial and usually come up with the correct results. Working from instructions and doing a demonstration has usually worked well for me. But, you know, I know there are people out there that, you know, maybe don't have the equipment I do, maybe don't have the knowledge base that I do. And, you know, I try to gear my channel to some extent for those people. And I am very happy that, you know, I'm getting more and more feedback saying exactly what you said. Continue what you're doing. You know, it's nice to know that in some small way I'm making a difference. And these videos will probably still be floating around the internet after I'm dead and gone. But you know, I'm a freelancer corporate trainer in DWH, ETL, BI, and virtualization. Very nice. Very nice. Other than virtualization, I don't have much experience in the rest of those. And you know, if you've got a YouTube channel, feel free to drop it in the chat. I'd be happy to look at some of the stuff you're doing as well, because there's always room for me to expand my horizons a little bit and learn from other people as well. Houston, I think we have a problem. So the curse of the live demo is striking me once again. My menu bar has all but disappeared up here, and that's not what I wanted to do. You come back over here where I put you. So I think I'm going to have to do a hard reset on this and restart it. But make this work. So I don't, I'll be straight up, I don't work a lot with OpenIndiana. It's one of those things I install from time to time, and I get some enjoyment from the nostalgia aspect of it. And if it inspires somebody else to play with it and use something that's different and unique, then so be it. I'm to quote a movie from 1974 called Blazing Saddles, I'm just a pawn in the game of life. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but I just hope that I'm making a small difference for people and demonstrating some of this stuff, even when the demos go horribly wrong, is nice to do, and just to take advantage of the technology that we have today for video and delivery systems and things. From that aspect, YouTube has been a great thing, and hopefully this will boot to a desktop. YouTube has been a great thing, and between the Dale Carnegie training I did years ago and YouTube, it has definitely changed the way I perceive talking in front of groups. And it's definitely made me more comfortable in front of a camera. Now, whether I'd be this comfortable in front of a TV studio, I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so we've got, excuse me, we've got we've got OpenIndiana back up. I'm going to put this back into scaled mode, make it a little bit easier for people to read. And so this is saying that it's running CentOS. So it's based on Solaris, kernel version 5.11, the Illumos designator, and then some processor designation information here. And of course, all of the tools that you expect from a Linux or other Unix distribution are available. HTOP is not installed. Let's see if I can remember my root password that I said yesterday. Either that one, probably not. That one. Okay, I am root. Okay, so much like FreeBSD, OpenIndiana uses the package manager, which I don't use on a regular basis. But once you install with one package manager, the rest are fairly simple to pick up. So I do feel like this tends to run a little bit more slowly than other systems installed on the same basic virtual machine specifications. So I've got this running on a VM with 4 gigs of RAM, maxed out at 128 megs of video memory, 2 processor cores. I think I gave this a 24 gigabyte virtual hard drive. It's got bridge networking. And that's the basic formula for the virtual machines I build in VirtualBox on this particular machine that I'm running. Typically, Linux seems to run best on the on VirtualBox. Variants of Linux. FreeDOS seems to run quite well if you've got a need for old DOS applications and things of that nature. Windows 10 can be made to run okay in a virtual machine. Now, in my case, I've resorted to picking up some extra Dell Optiplex machines. And so I've got one, it's a Optiplex 7010 that is running Windows 10. So I've got a dedicated Windows 10 machine. I've got another Optiplex that's running, it's a 7040. It's running Ubuntu currently. And let's see, the 7010 with Windows has, I believe, 8 gigs of RAM. The Ubuntu machine has 8 currently, and I've got another 8 that's going to be delivered today. Because, hey, you know, it's Mother's Day and my mother's not around, so I'm going to buy myself a present. So, but yeah, so as you can see, I've got HTOP running after I installed it. And it is chewing through that first processor core quite a bit. And of course, you can filter things here. And see what's eating up the processor. Okay, and I swear I gave this 4 gigs of RAM, but it's showing 2. That's interesting. See if I can. Oh, I did only give that 2. Okay, that's fair. Okay, so but anyways, OpenIndiana is somewhat novel to play with just because it is based on a true Unix derived system. So this is running Mate version 1.24.1. Comes with Firefox and Thunderbird for web and email, respectively. Has a lot of the standard things installed. One thing I'm a little surprised it doesn't have installed is GIMP. And so we might just if the terminal will open up again. There we go. See if we can install GIMP. I'm sure this has to be in here. We'll see how long this takes to install. But you know, this I don't know if I would run this on a machine that I used every day. I wouldn't use it on a VM that I used every day. But if you have something that might still require a Solaris derived system, it might not be the worst thing in the world. So as you can see, if you go to the network browsing, it does detect my various items on my network. So my Optiplex 7010 running Windows 10, my various NAS boxes, and my HAS, my Home Assistant controller, as well as my printer. So it picked up all those things automatically. If you hadn't guessed by the naming convention on the NAS boxes, at least the 3 of them, I'm a fan of the 1995 movie Hackers, and the names of my NAS boxen are named after characters from the movie: Acid Burn, Serial Killer, and Lord Nikon. So that's all good there. One thing that I have not tried on this yet, I suppose we could do here, is, as I know it saw my printer on the network, so let's go ahead and take a look and see if it will in fact add the printer to the system. And of course, this is going to be based on cups, which is at least at one time it was the common Unix printing system, later bought out by Apple. Apple still developing it to some extent, but they've changed the licensing a little bit. It's one of those things that the great part of open source is that other developers have forked it, so it will be able to retain its place in the Linux ecosystem. And okay, so we've got print settings showing up on the bottom of the screen. There we go. I got multiple windows open, maybe. Okay, there we go. So we'll close one of these. And we'll just see if this detects my printer. And network printer, find network printer. So I didn't specify an address, so let's jump back over here to the first screen. We jump back to places and network. maybe we can make this work. So we get properties of the printer because I don't remember the IP address right off the top of my head. Permissions, open with. Okay, so that didn't work for me. So we'll bring up one of my favorite tools. Which is Angry IP Scanner. And the one thing I like about this is even though it does use Java, which I know people have a love-hate relationship with these days, Angry IP Scanner does run pretty much anywhere you can make Java run with a graphical environment. So I have used this on Linux, Windows, Mac OS, and it works very nicely for me. So 74.20 is my printer, which is fine. Let's jump back over here. And see what we get. So, all right. And it did, in fact, pull up that printer, port 9100. If we can get this to go full screen. Okay. So what if we do IPP? And then forward. Good morning, Carlos. I'm doing well today. Just been doing a demo of OpenIndiana. Just playing around with it a little bit to see if I can make the make some of the things work on this, and installing a couple pieces of software. And right now we're seeing if we can make it install my printer. So interestingly enough, okay, let's say brother. We'll come back to the Mac side of things for a moment. Go into system preferences and see what my model number for the printer is. And that's a 5370DW. Move that out of the way. Let's see if we have any luck with this. We jump back to the first virtual desktop. Get rid of that. Still waiting on GIMP to install. Don't know if that's going to just fail on me at this point, but we can open another tab. can see I got both processor cores pegged pretty decent. All right, so let's go over here. Make a model 5370 DW forward. Postscript brother. And yes, Carlos, I can definitely relate. I switched to Brother printers, I think in 2001 or 2. I had at the time an inkjet printer, and we had a lightning storm come through. And wouldn't you know it, after the lightning storm, my inkjet printer wouldn't work anymore. So that was when I bought my first Brother laser printer. And I used that until 2008. And it was still running strong at the time. But I had a screw loose, and so I was engaged at the time, and ended up giving that printer to my now ex-fiance. And I ended up purchasing a Brother color printer. And the only complaint I've got about the Brother color printer, which I still have and it still works, is that the toner cartridges are a little expensive, and it only prints on one side. So I don't know, I think it was 2013, I found this Brother HL5370 DW at a local store on closeout, and I got it for a really low price. And yeah, I've been using it ever since. I went through so I've had that since 2013. I've gone through the starter cartridge of toner, and then I bought a high yield cartridge, and that was probably about 2017-ish. And I've been using that ever since. Now, granted, I don't print much anymore, but there are a few things that I do like to print, and it comes in handy very much for that. So getting the Brother cartridges or toner cartridges specifically on Amazon is fairly inexpensive. And at the end of the day, I don't print in color that much. So once this color laser printer dies, I will probably just get rid of it, because I can submit prints online to a number of stores to get pictures printed, or to print a brochure or something in color if I really need it in color. And everything else I can print in black and white. So, hello USB Tux, welcome. So that did not take the printer, which is something I'll potentially play around with some more later. But yeah, before I move on from OpenIndiana, is there anything anybody's interested in seeing? Now, this is a virtual machine, so I can't, just plug a USB drive into it or anything like that, like you would a physical machine. But if there's something you want to see in the interface, I'd be happy to show it. I'm curious to see myself if they're running. Okay, so that's run program. Preferences. Let's see what we've got here to work with a little bit. File system. That's a good question. Let's see. From the documentation, it says, regardless of the partitioning option chosen for the file system, manual control over the OpenIndiana file system layout is not supported. During the installation, the Solaris fdisk partition is reformatted with a default ZFS file system. All existing systems on the Solaris partition are destroyed. So it sounds like it's defaulting to ZFS. I think I'm still eating up a bunch of resources trying to install GIMP in the background. Not sure if it'll tell us much here. Maybe I can find let's see. It's still trying to install GIMP. And that's actually saying it's using UFS. So maybe some of their documentation hasn't been updated yet, or perhaps because of the size of the disk I used and only using a single disk, it defaulted back to UFS. I'm not entirely sure, but this does indicate that it's using UFS. Which I guess doesn't surprise me a lot because that was used on FreeBSD for a lot of years. All right. So I'm going to hopefully the shutdown command works the same. Not enough space. Interesting. Well, in any event, I'm going to kill this virtual machine. And we will bring up Rocky Linux. So for those that don't know, Rocky Linux is another one of the CentOS replacements. And this particular distribution is being spearheaded by one of the people that was involved in CentOS early on. And so the name comes from one of the co-founders of the CentOS project who has since passed away. And you know, this has, I think, some potential to it. I think it's a little behind as far as the release schedule compared to where AlmaLinux is at this point. I don't really have a preference between the two all that much because I'm more of a Debian and Ubuntu kind of guy. But I know there are a lot of people and organizations out there that have made a heavy use of CentOS over the years. And so it is worth covering here on the channel because you just never know what people's preferences might be. So let's see. Right out of the gate, you can see it looks like CentOS 8 or RHEL 8 or, you know, AlmaLinux. Let's see if we can make it change our screen resolution. Sure. Oh, that's better anyways. It's not exactly where I wanted to be. But it does not appear to have my 1440 by 900 resolution that I typically use for my VM demos. But it does have a little more recent version of GNOME. So this is running a version of GNOME 3 compared to, say, OpenIndiana that we just looked at, which is running Mate, which is based on the GNOME 2 series. And if we come back down here to details, the GNOME 3.32.2. So this is, in fact, running on 4 gigs of RAM, 2 processor cores, which I thought was what I gave to the OpenIndiana VM as well, but apparently I didn't. So I haven't had any real issues with this. I did, let's see, I did notice Yes, I saw the complaints about the large ISO image file. And you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You know, it's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't situations. So they do have a smaller ISO out. You can do a minimal install and just end up with a command line install type of thing where you can then go ahead and install your graphical interface of choice on top of that. And you know, save the download for the ISO image, and you just end up downloading more stuff from the internet. So, I wasn't really concerned about the download size because I set it to download on a machine that I wasn't using, and I went off and started doing other things for the period of time that you know, I wanted while I was waiting for this thing to download. So of course this comes with the GNOME software, and you can install anything you want on here, really, within reason of what they are making available. So for productivity, you've got LibreOffice Suite. Utilities, you've got a lot of the standard stuff, gedit, whatnot. Mouse is being a little erratic today in this. Doesn't look like there are any updates at the moment, which I wouldn't expect there to be, but we'll refresh this. I did just install this yesterday, but it's you know, since it's still a release candidate, I expect there to be more updates coming out than usual once the full release has been completed. Okay, so that is in fact up to date. Let's see. Developer tools. So you got GNOME boxes for virtualization, and that's got a check, so that's installed. Idle 3, Dev Help, and CMake GUI. So there are a lot of things that are not in the software store. And so, you know, this is one of those times when you just have to get down and dirty and install from the command line. Have a good day, USB Tux. Thanks for stopping by. So see if I can get the mouse to behave itself. Come down here. And get rid of that comment. So just so everybody's aware, I think I mentioned this earlier. I've tried a couple of times to drop comments in the chat, but for whatever reason today, StreamYard is not cooperating with me for that, and I don't feel like grabbing my cell phone and typing it in from there. So I will just do more verbal type responses as comments come in. So like RHEL and CentOS, the kernel version in Rocky is going to tend to lag behind what is currently available. So 5.12 is the upcoming release of the Linux kernel. 5.11 is out. There's a lot of distributions right now running, 5.9 or newer. And this is running 4.18. So that's good. So I'd rather ship a web browser, a terminal, and Nautilus. I mean, more technically, CentOS and Rocky is not meant for laptop, desktop, daily use. You're absolutely right, Carlos. A lot of people use CentOS for, without a desktop at all, and use it for hosting websites. That's one of the big uses of CentOS based distributions. And it's something that has been going on for a lot of years, and there are multiple camps out there that say this distribution or that distribution is better for web hosting. And I'm sure you can find people out there that are running Slackware or, by the way, I run Arch people are probably running their websites on a version of Arch. And, so when I do use a CentOS based distribution, I try to keep it pretty minimal. I've dabbled with some Python programming over the years, and I have on occasion used a CentOS for that, just because I want to be able to test on CentOS. And now I'll do the same thing with either Rocky or AlmaLinux. The one place where CentOS had been gaining a little bit of traction on a desktop front was for video editing, specifically when it comes to the DaVinci Resolve software, which was officially supported on CentOS and RHEL, and everybody else was in that unsupported category, which is all and fine. I'm happy that Blackmagic is making DaVinci available on Linux. So whatever stipulations they want to put on it, so be it. It's one of those things that I've not fully committed to using DaVinci Resolve. I played with it on several occasions because I am still wanting to migrate all of my live streaming and video editing and recording workflows over to Linux. Just because there are still a lot of question marks on where Apple is going with the M1 chips. And I certainly don't want to buy a first generation Mac system built on the first generation M1 chip. Now, in 2023, maybe, I might consider replacing and buying another Mac Mini that's maybe based on the M3 chip. And this, again, is speculation that's what they will call it. you know, I know they're already working on an M2 or an M1X, whatever the case may be. I don't know what they're going to call it. That's supposed to ship later this year or early 2022. I'm interested to see if Apple is going to start updating their computers at the same frequency that they update the cell phones and tablets. So that'll be interesting to see there. I've only used CentOS for web projects as well. If you come from Debian, Ubuntu and Debian, it's kind of confusing. The name of Apache 2 is HTTPD, and messing with SE Linux, otherwise HTTPD won't start. Yep, I've been there. And that's, you know, what we've got on Debian and Ubuntu systems, App Armor, which doesn't ship out of the box by default turned on or anything. And it's very similar to SE Linux, but I don't think as many people are using it. But you know, it's all in good. So yeah, let me shut this down. I've got one other thing. I didn't actually put it on the thumbnail or in the description, but just for entertainment purposes, I've got one other little thing in my bag that I want to show today. Or I think I want to show it today. Let's see if I can figure out where I put the browser tab that has it in it. Now let's take that off screen for a moment. So you're stuck looking at me. Right. So let's, here we go. Bring that over here. Excuse me. Well, where do we go? There we are. Okay, so years ago, I started hearing about DDWRT, and this was before I started buying more prosumer level networking gear. You know, I was a college student living off my financial aid money, and I started hearing about this, you know, mostly in regards to the insanely popular Linksys routers. But, you know, I found out that they had a version of this firmware that would run on Buffalo routers as well. And so I happened to find a Buffalo router on the shelf at a local store in the college town I was in at the time. And so I picked it up. It was, I don't know, around $50 US. And this was 2004, 2005-ish. And I installed DDWRT on it. And it was much more difficult then than it is now. But I was recently contacted to potentially work on a project for this small local business that I still don't understand the draw of their concept, but anyways, they want to use consumer level routers that are available everywhere to be able to run their system, which I think is a mistake, but to each their own. So I got this old Linksys router, or excuse me, this old TP-Link router that I've had sitting around, and I bought this. I don't know. It's probably been 4 or 5 years ago because I had this idea that let's do WPA2 enterprise wireless security in my apartment for no other reason than to learn more about radius servers and different things like that. So I did, in fact, have this all up and running at one point in time. I think that was before I flashed it with DDWRT. And so every user on my on the Wi-Fi network that was connected with this router actually had their own username and password to log in. And so, after I got through that project and got sort of bored with the maintenance of it, I dismantled it because it was the router and a server running the software for the radius server. And I just sort of set the router aside. So fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, and I got contacted to potentially be working on this project. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll update the DDWRT firmware on it. So this is from November of last year. And, it's certainly better than the garbage that TP-Link puts on their consumer level routers. And so, then this project that I was potentially going to be working on, the people, or I should say the guy, hasn't been able to come up with money and the other details that we need to prototype this for him. So, I've just let this router sit running DDWRT, and I've just been sort of refamiliarizing myself with it after a bunch of years of not using it. And no big surprise, it really hasn't changed all that much. Of course, they've done work behind the scenes and, added a few features here and there, but this is still running a 3.18 Linux kernel, which, that does make me a little nervous in 2021. One thing that it does have is I've got SSH access on it. This decides to let me reconnect. So, that's a nice thing there. You've got standard top, no H-top, but that's pretty much to be expected with one of these low-powered embedded systems. So, it's just one of those novelty things that I play with from time to time. And you know, I used to do quite a bit with this. When I was in grad school, I actually had a pair of Buffalo routers set up at my dad's place, one at opposite ends of the house, as sort of a mesh Wi-Fi system, a poor man's mesh Wi-Fi system, so that, you know, there was better Wi-Fi signal in the living room. And, you know, this DDWRT let me do that, and it was inexpensive. It was just, you know, configuration work more than anything. And yeah, it's got its place for sure. But, you know, because of some of the licensing changes that have been made over the years, you know, there are people that are pushing the idea of using OpenWRT or Tomato, and there might be other derivatives that I'm not up to date on, using those instead of DDWRT, because I think there's I think they make some free versions available, but they also charge for some of this stuff. You know, it's one of those things, I guess, where, you know, decisions get made as to what's best for a product or project. And, you know, in order to keep it going rather than what the community as a whole might want. So yes, they do have a professional license. And you can buy pre-flashed routers. Looks like they've got a partnership with Flash Routers, so that you could get a router preloaded with DDWRT. Now, I do recall within the last couple of years, there are some Buffalo router models that are being shipped out of the box with a skinned version of DDWRT. But celebrating 10 years. You know, there are people that prefer the Netgear or the Linksys routers over Buffalo, and this is a way that you can get your preferred brand and model and, you know, have it pre-flashed, and so it's got the optimized software on there. So anyways, that's all I've got on that, I suppose. But yeah, again, just kind of taking me back to where I was in during my undergrad program, working with Solaris in the computer lab and running DDWRT on my router. There are some fond memories of going through my undergrad program. So I have an old Linksys E900 running DDWRT. I feel Linksys got a good reputation with DDWRT as well. Netgear with the Nighthawk series. Yes. So I do think it was two different iterations of Linksys. You know, there was Linksys that existed in like 2004. Then they were sold to Cisco. And, you know, then a few years later, they were sold to Belkin. So Belkin, I mean, they're interesting in that they're still making their own routers with their own branding on it, but they are also, at least they were, come on, you know, but they also own Linksys and are selling that brand as well under the Linksys naming. So Belkin was always one of those brands. I had bought Belkin stuff out of almost necessity because of where I was buying it at. They were a lower cost brand. They've always had sort of funky shapes with their equipment. And these Wi-Fi 6 routers are no exception. But you know, under the hood, they were pretty solid. At least the ones that I used, you know, starting in 2002-ish, were pretty solid. The model that I had a Belkin router and a Belkin switch, which have long since gone to the great bit bucket in the sky. But they were this funky shape, kind of similar to this, but they had a mounting ring on the one side, and they would let you twist them together so that you could have, for instance, the router and the switch right next to each other. So you could run a very short cable between the two. And you know, for the time, they were operable. You know, the first couple years of my undergraduate degree, they worked well to do what I needed at that time. But you know, it's really a brand that I haven't looked at seriously in a number of years. And at this point in my career and with the equipment that I now own, they don't really offer anything that compelling to me. And you know, it's kind of the same thing with Linksys. You know, they have intelligent mesh, whole home mesh Wi-Fi. The thing that I didn't like about and I think Carlos, I had an E900 myself, or an E1200 maybe it was. You know, when they started to push the idea that you had to use a phone app to set up your home router, I really was not on board with that. I guess I'm just kind of old school in that regard. And you know, it is what it is. I just I think it's okay if that's an option, but I don't think you should be forced to use your phone to set up your router or switch. Now, you know, Linksys does make some decent, albeit generally higher price than Unify or Ubiquiti specifically equipment. They do make some nice business level switches. You know, this used to be out of the Cisco small business line. And I'm not sure once Cisco sold Linksys off to Belkin, if Belkin developed these off the existing product line that was being developed at Cisco when they owned Linksys, or if this was something that they just sort of built and branded to go along with the Linksys stuff. So I don't know all the history behind the transition from Cisco to Belkin. I know it happened, and you know, I think the consumer level networking gear is in a better place now than what it was when Cisco owned Linksys. So I think on that note, we are at 12:18 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Are there any questions? Oh, Carlos, you might be the only one left in the chat at this point. Are there any questions? Anybody that might be watching this live and not showing up in my count? Any questions that are hitting you right now that you want to throw out there? Figure I'll wrap this up around 12:30 local time for me, 12:30 Eastern Daylight Time. But I like to leave a little time at the end to answer questions and just do a little brainstorming for future videos. Find out what topics people might be interested in for future videos, and get things rolling that way. So, any questions from anybody? Carlos or anybody else? This has been a lot of me talking today, and I'm not sure if the chat function is not working for me because of a problem with StreamYard, or if it's not working because of my Brave browser needing to install an update. And it's still throwing an error message. But I don't dare update my browser because that would probably kill the stream. So we'll let it go where it's at the moment. So let's see. I suppose I could throw up my tech news sites and see if there's anything interesting. I don't check these near as much as I used to. Let's see. I was going to say I'm old school wannabe, as I don't like using apps to manage my router. I'm right there with you. Right there with you. I think there's a time and place for apps, and there definitely times when, you know, for instance, I was in a situation a little over a week ago at a campground, and I was using an app on my phone, and maybe I can tell you what that app was. Basically to do site survey work and, you know, find out information about the access points, because I'm taking over some maintenance and hopefully improvement of an outdoor Wi-Fi network at a campground. So I'm hoping that I can make things better than they are right now. And actually, when I returned home from the trip to that campground, I discovered that the person that had been or had implemented this outdoor Wi-Fi system and had been maintaining it, he used non-overlapping channels on the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. And, you know, it's one of those things. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I do know that 1, 6, and 11 are the non-overlapping channels. And, you know, having overlapping channels is not a good thing. So this particular campground has 3 Wi-Fi locations. So they have fiber coming to a utility pole, and off their fiber adapter, they have I believe it's a TP-Link. I don't have my notes in front of me. It's a TP-Link access point, outdoor rated access point. And so these are 3 independent service locations across the campground. And so, you know, it's one of those things that shouldn't be a big deal, but there's a couple of these locations that are just close enough that if you face the right direction, you can get signal from multiple access points. And, you know, if they're not overlapping, that would be a great thing, since, you know, they're not on the same network. And, you know, the other interesting part of that is right now I don't have any good way of doing remote access for these devices to keep them updated. And so I'm going to be looking at a few options for that. But it may be one of those situations where, you know, I go down twice over the course of their camping season and make sure that they're getting updates, and then maybe a third trip down right before they close for in the fall, because they normally shut down the Wi-Fi when the campground is not up and running. So yeah, it's an interesting project and something that is a little new to me yet, but I view this as an opportunity to get some more experience and be even more ready for the next job change I do at some point in the next 2 to 3 years, I'm expecting. So Slashdot does not have much of interest today. Let's see. How to reset GNOME desktop settings to default in Linux. Top 5 open source Office 365 alternatives or Microsoft 365 alternatives. eBPF for advanced Linux infrastructure monitoring. That I'm not familiar with. Originally introduced as BPF in 1992. Well then. Oh, this must be re-implemented with Go. Interesting. I might have to read more about that one. Anything else of interest? Oh, Audacity adding telemetry. A lot of hubbub about that. 1804 flavors of Ubuntu reach end of life. Users urged to upgrade to 20.04 LTS. Examples of open source best practices in knowledge sharing projects. That could be an interesting read. I love it when places publish articles on projects that are sort of on life support and not really maintained anymore. Install PHP VirtualBox to manage and access VirtualBox VMs. Only PHP VirtualBox has not really been updated to any large degree since 2015. I wish they would just stop, but such is life, I suppose. Compare how 6 different knowledge sharing communities approach gathering, maintaining, and distributing their best practices. To-do group. OSI, IEEE, SA Open, Open Source Way, Teaching Open Source, and the Open Organization. Interesting. Interested to see what this guidebook is. All right, let's open a PDF copy of this. And of course, it prompts to download, which I don't want to do necessarily. Presenting the open source way. Okay, that's a read for later on. Okay, so yes, the OpenIndiana that I demonstrated was Hipster 2021.04. OpenBSD 6.9 is released. Oh, 5.12 has been released, so I was wrong in saying that it was the upcoming version. Microsoft is building a new app store for Windows 10. Yay, maybe they can get it right this time. I'd be happier if they just built a true working package manager and let somebody else make the wrapper that gives the store functionality on top of it. But it's Microsoft, and so that's all wishful thinking. Nothing terribly new on Linux today. Yeah. There hasn't been a lot exciting on any of the news sites lately. That's probably the reason that I have just not been so enthused about reading these on a regular basis anymore. Now, granted, for the better part of almost 20 years, I was like religiously reading my tech news in the morning. And I don't know, about 2 or 3 years ago, I got out of that habit for whatever reason. So, lightweight Linux distro showdown. All right. Well, I haven't been able to find anything interesting in the news sites. Let's see. We want to do any new walkthroughs at How to Forge. Manage AWS VPC using AWS CLI. What is ingress controller? Memcached. More AWS. Ugh. How to install and use Telnet on Ubuntu 20.04. Oh wow. Yeah, I'm not in favor of having Telnet installed on anything these days. Now there are some reasons that you may want to do that. Most notable of which is some of the places that are resurrecting these old bulletin board systems from a bygone era. Many of those are using Telnet instead of SSH for whatever reason. But you know, if you're going into it knowing the limitations of Telnet and you really want to get your nostalgia fix, fine. Do it from a VM or do it from a container or do it from a machine that's on a separated VLAN on your network. I would not have Telnet installed on one of my main machines. It's not secure. It's, you know, nearly 50-year-old technology. It could be 50-year-old technology. Let's see. Telnet. It's more than 50-year-old technology. Developed in 1969. I don't know. I don't trust much in the line of technology that was available before the Beatles broke up. Let's see. Last time I used Telnet was to log into a Cisco Catalyst switch, and just because we didn't have a serial connection. Yep. When I was teaching IT courses and we specifically had a Cisco class, I did similar things, mostly until I had received the serial cables that I ordered for the switches. So, yeah, I really don't, I don't have a legit use for Telnet these days. You know, maybe someday I'll feel the nerd urge to reconnect with some of those old BBSs, but I've got too much going on in my life right now to do it at the moment. So, all right, it's 12:37, so I think I will go ahead and wrap up on that note. Thanks for coming out, everybody that did. And if you have questions, please drop those either in the live chat before it goes away or in the comment sections down below once this video is published. Please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I do have some videos coming. I'm not going to put a time frame on those, but I am aiming to start balancing out the live streams and the recorded videos to a larger degree. For the last several months, I've mostly been doing the live streams. I've got a few recorded videos out here and there, but not like I was doing before. And I blame part of that on just, you know, isolation and the whole COVID situation in the world right now. But I've just seen projects slow down to the point that I have not been overly motivated to make a new video. Excuse me. But I have a couple of videos that I've started. I just need to get those the editing on those completed, and those will be coming out soon. Imagine the end of the world and it can only be saved using old technologies. Yeah. So I'm sure somewhere in a bunker there's somebody that has a stockpile of Apple IIe's and Commodore 64s and you know, what have you, stuff that might be able to survive something like that. And who knows, maybe an Altair or something out there somewhere. I did hear that there was, and I don't know if this is true, so take it for what it is. But I did hear that there's still a U.S. governmental agency that's using a system that relies on 8-inch floppy disks. So take that with a grain of salt, I suppose. But yeah, I think I'll go ahead and wrap this up now. And everybody stay safe out there, and, you know, follow the local guidelines for your location, and hopefully we can get past this thing that's been plaguing the earth for the last 15 months and get people back to the pre-COVID days where people were a little bit more motivated to do things and had opportunities to go out and be with people in the public. I know I'm looking forward to that again, and I've got my first shot, and I've been tired for the last few days, but overall I felt good. Get my next shot on the 2nd of June, and so by the 15th of June, I will be at full coverage for the vaccine. So, just ticking those days off the calendar and looking forward to being able to go out to more restaurants and different things again. And, yeah. On that note, have a good afternoon, everybody, and I will see you. Actually, I have a live stream coming up Thursday night, and then again next Sunday. So stay tuned for announcements of those, and we will get things moving again. Take care. See you in the next video.